Breaking news out of Tennessee. The Titans just made a stunning move on the offensive line, one that nobody saw coming. But what they didn't do on waiver wire Wednesday is raising even bigger questions. Titans fans, you'll want to hear this because it could shape how ready this team is for week one. The Tennessee Titans made headlines with a shocking cut on the offensive line. But here's the twist. It's not just the player they let go, it's the moves they didn't make that are truly surprising. Before we dive into the latest updates, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss breaking Titans news. Let's move on to the big story. The Titans decided to release Corey Levin, who had been filling in as the starting center during Lloyd Cushenberry's Achilles recovery. On the surface, cutting a guy who's been your first-team center all offseason seems shocking. But here's the real story. It's actually a sign of confidence. This move strongly suggests that the Titans believe Lloyd Cushenberry is fully ready for Week 1 against the Denver Broncos. That's massive news for this offense because it means they'll have their veteran anchor back on the field. It also signals growing trust in rookie Jackson Slater, drafted late but valued for his versatility. While Slater wasn't heavily used at center during camp or preseason, the Titans may feel he's capable of stepping in if needed. And don't forget, veteran Blake Hans could also provide depth at the position. One more thing, Levin isn't completely gone. He's now on the Titans practice squad. So if Cushenberry suffers a setback, the team can quickly elevate Levin back onto the active roster. In short, this cut looks like bad news on the surface, but it's actually a very encouraging sign for Tennessee's offensive line. The practice squad additions brought even more intrigue. On the offensive line, the Titans made another tough call. John Ojukwu was cut. For years, Ojukwu has been that extra jumbo tight end type of blocker. But instead of sticking with the veteran, the Titans chose to keep undrafted rookie Brennan Crenshaw Dixon out of Florida. That's a big statement, going with fresh upside over experience. Still, I expect Ojukwu to land back on the practice squad, giving Tennessee a safety net if they need him later in the year. And speaking of the practice squad, Xavier Restrepo is officially back. Titans fans can breathe a sigh of relief because there was real concern about whether he'd stick around. But Restrepo isn't alone. The team also kept Mason Kinsey and James Proche, giving them 3 wide receivers on the practice squad, definitely on the heavy side, but also a very strategic move. Why? Because Proche is being lined up as the primary punt returner. The Titans didn't risk losing him to waivers. Instead, they're stashing him on the practice squad and will elevate him on game days. It's a smart roster shuffle, keeping developmental players safe while making sure their return game stays solid. And then there's Mason Kinsey. What can you say? The guy just won't go away. Every year he finds a way to stick, and once again he's back in Nashville. Beyond that, we saw some depth pieces added. Cam Horsley, the undrafted defensive lineman, returns. Trevor Siemian is back to handle scout team duties at quarterback. Running backs Jamar Jefferson and Jordan Mims also return, giving the Titans some insurance at a position where injuries can pile up fast. Other notable names: Clay Webb, once a highly touted recruit at Georgia, joins the practice squad after leaving Denver. The Titans clearly see long-term potential in his athleticism and want to develop him under Bill Callahan. Kendall Brooks, who had that memorable pick 6 against Atlanta, sticks around at safety. Isaiah Rakes, another undrafted lineman, gets his shot too. And even though I thought he had a chance to crack the final roster, linebacker Ollie Gay is back on the practice squad. Same for tight end Thomas Odukoya, offensive lineman Andrew Rupshi, and veteran defensive tackle Carlos Watkins. The bottom line, Tennessee used the practice squad to build depth and keep future talent in-house, while also protecting key contributors they plan to use on Sundays. So with the practice squad now set, here's what really stands out. Corey Levin is still around and can be elevated if the Titans need him. At the same time, you've got Clay Webb, a developmental piece with the potential to grow into that reliable depth role for the future. Smart roster construction, both short-term and long-term. Then there's James Proche. The Titans continue to work the roster gymnastics with him, but the important thing is he's staying in the fold, ready to contribute as a returner. And of course, Xavier Restrepo. His return is big. He's one of those players who may not wow you every day in practice, but when the lights come on, that's when his impact will show. I fully expect him to get called up this season and make some noise. But the Titans weren't done. On Wednesday, they added 6 new players in total, 4 waiver claims and 2 signings, while cutting 5 others. And here's where things get interesting. Every single waiver claim came on the defensive side of the ball. It tells you a lot about how this front office is thinking. They see depth concerns, they see opportunities, and they attack the waiver wire to fix it. And at the very top of that list, cornerback. Early in the day, reports surfaced that the Titans were aggressively targeting corners, and that's exactly what happened. They landed two new cornerbacks, starting with Jalen Armour Davis, a former fourth-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens. At 6'1", 200 pounds, Armour Davis brings size, length, and physicality on the outside. Still just 26 years old, he's already logged 19 NFL games and nearly 100 defensive snaps last season. For a team that has desperately needed more stability at corner, this is a fascinating pickup. The Titans didn't just stop at one cornerback, they doubled down. Alongside Armour Davis, they brought in Samuel Womack, a 5'10", 190-pound defensive back out of Toledo. Drafted by San Francisco in 2022, Womack spent last season with the Colts, where he logged heavy snaps on defense and proved he could play outside despite his size. This isn't just a depth signing. Womack has real experience. In fact, he's appeared in 40 career games, recorded over 60 tackles, and grabbed 3 interceptions, including one against the Titans themselves last season. That's the kind of production Tennessee can use immediately. While Womack's special teams role dipped last year because he was starting on defense, earlier in his career he was a reliable contributor in the kicking game. That versatility makes him especially valuable for a team still piecing together the back end of its roster. So the Titans get two very different players at corner: Armour Davis, a developmental project with upside, and Womack, a proven contributor who can step in right away. Together, they reshape a secondary that desperately needed reinforcements. But cornerback wasn't the only focus. Tennessee also made a move at linebacker, something many expected after seeing Curtis Jacobs slip down the depth chart. The front office turned to Dorian Massey, a 6'1", 234-pound linebacker who went undrafted this year but showed promise in the preseason. Massey began his career at Duke before transferring to Auburn, where he became one of the team's leaders on defense. Last year alone, he racked up 81 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. He's aggressive, he's physical, and he brings the downhill style the Titans love from their linebackers. Don't be surprised if his ability to blitz and contribute on special teams earns him an early role. Finally, the Titans rounded out their waiver haul with a move in the trenches, bringing in a true nose tackle to provide depth behind rookie T'Vondre Sweat. This addition is meant to replace Timmy Horn and keep the rotation strong on the interior defensive line. A classic space eater who can clog lanes, he gives Tennessee another option to keep their run defense stout. The Titans' fourth and final waiver claim went to C.J. Ravenel, a defensive lineman with intriguing versatility. At 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, Ravenel isn't your typical nose tackle. He's more of a hybrid player who can slide between the 5 technique and interior roles. Think of him as a depth option behind Sebastian Joseph Day, while T'Vondre Sweat anchors the nose and Jeffrey Simmons controls the 3 tech. What this means is simple. Tennessee now has a direct backup for each of their key interior defenders. Lynch behind Simmons, Tuttle behind Sweat, and Ravenel behind Joseph Day. It's a balanced structure that finally gives this defensive line some breathing room. But as with any roster churn, nothing is guaranteed. These depth signings can be short-lived if the players don't flash in practice or preseason action. Still, the Titans had to address defensive depth, and the moves make a lot of sense. One of the most important signings of the day was veteran Shy Tuttle. At 6'3", 300 pounds, with 6 NFL seasons under his belt, Tuttle has appeared in 95 games, piling up over 230 tackles and proving to be one of the most durable defensive linemen in football, missing only 2 games in the last 4 years. With so many young defensive linemen failing to stick, the Titans turn to a proven veteran who can hold the middle. That's smart, stabilizing business. Then there's Clay Webb, a former high-profile recruit at Georgia. Webb transferred to Jacksonville State before making his way to the NFL. Now, after a short stint in Denver, he's joined the Titans practice squad. His athleticism makes him a fascinating project for offensive line coach Bill Callahan, one of the best developers of talent in the league. If Callahan can bring out Webb's potential, Tennessee may have found another long-term depth piece on the interior. All in all, these 6 additions finalize the cuts Tennessee made. The most notable release was still Corey Levin, but players like John Ajuku, Curtis Jacobs, Gabe Judy Lally, and Timmy Horn were also let go. Some of them could circle back to the practice squad if they clear waivers, so the story isn't fully over. But here's the real twist. While the Titans worked hard to strengthen the trenches and add defensive depth, they didn't make any moves at running back, wide receiver, edge rusher, or quarterback. Why? That's the question we have to unpack next. The most surprising part of all this isn't about who the Titans signed. It's about who they didn't. A lot of fans expected movement at running back, myself included, and yet nothing. No waiver claim, no veteran pickup, no last-minute trade. Instead, the Titans doubled down on what they already had. They brought Jermar Jefferson and Jordan Mims back on the practice squad, but let's be real, that doesn't exactly calm concerns with Tyjae Spears sidelined and Kalen Mullings nursing an injury. On paper, that leaves the Titans leaning on Mullings as the primary backup behind Tyjae once he's back. Now, maybe the team knows something we don't. Maybe Mullings' injury isn't as serious as it looked. Maybe they believe he can handle that RB2 role until Spears returns in Week 5. But honestly, that's a risky bet. It's hard to believe this front office is willing to go into the season with so little proven depth at one of the most punishing positions in football. That's why this move, or lack of a move, is raising eyebrows. The Titans clearly believe their answers are already in-house, but the question is, will that gamble hold up once the season actually kicks off? Here's the truth. I've never been all in on Julius Chestnut, and I'm not convinced Kalen Mullings is ready either. He's a rookie who switched over from linebacker, and in preseason his pass protection showed exactly how raw he still is. Counting on Mullings or Chestnut, or even Tony Part to handle a real rotation, that's shaky, no matter how you frame it. And in today's NFL, where you can still find quality running backs on the street, standing pat feels like a miss. Sure, the Titans could still add a veteran or grab a guy after final cuts settle, but for now, nothing. And that silence speaks volumes. Then there's wide receiver. A lot of us thought Trey Palmer could fit, or maybe a speed guy like Mecole Hardman. Instead, Hardman went back to Green Bay's practice squad, Palmer landed elsewhere, and the Titans passed. Why? Because they trust James Proche. He's back, he's their punt returner, and apparently that box is already checked. No need to chase another gadget receiver when they believe the answer's in-house. Quarterback is where it really gets interesting. The Titans brought Trevor Siemian back onto the practice squad, the same room we had before. That tells you everything. This team isn't looking for a high-level backup. If Cam Ward goes down, they're not trying to survive with Brandon Allen or Trevor Siemian. They're planning for the future. Ward is the centerpiece, and the guys around him are there to help him learn and grow, not to win games if he's out. Like it or not, that's the strategy. And finally, edge rusher. With so many names floating around, it was surprising to see no move here either. But I don't think this is over. My guess? The Titans are eyeing veterans. Someone like Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, or even a reunion with Jadeveon Clowney makes more sense than taking a shot on a rookie off waivers. Pair that kind of proven vet with Arden Key, Draymond Jones, and the young guys already in the room. Suddenly, the pass rush doesn't look as thin as it feels right now. So for now, no splashy signings, no surprise additions. The Titans seem to be betting on patience. The question is whether that gamble pays off once the season starts.